Hello and welcome to the second look from the Anfield wrap after Liverpool decimated Watford by 5-0 at Anfield last night, maintained their advantage at the top of the table despite Manchester City's win over West Ham United. To look back at the game and talk about where Liverpool go from here, you've got me, Dan Austin, Dan Morgan and Ian Ryan as well. And Dan, first and foremost, Liverpool were looking for 3 points as a priority, but it felt like after 2 goalless draws we needed a performance as well, and they ticked every box last night.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one I strangely felt confident about going into, and that's just not the hindsight thing, but I don't know what it is. There's some nights you just turn up at Anfield and you just get a vibe, and you know, it was a lovely day in the city yesterday, and we got in the ground and they had about 200 fans, and it just felt like one where you thought, I fancy us here, and like you say, it wasn't just the result we got the performance as well, and I think there's been times over the past week or two where we maybe had cause to not get on the manager's back, but question some of his decisions, maybe in-game. But I think last night he deserves a huge amount of credit. I think he gets a lot right. I think he gets the call of who he goes with, but also how he goes with them spot on too. And I think it all just plays out into a scenario around half-time where Watford probably want to get out at 2-0 and don't want to hide, but Liverpool continue, and that's a good sign for me.
Ian, Dan mentions there that everyone felt up for it. There's nights where it just feels like everything's going the right way. I really enjoyed the atmosphere again. It's similar to the one against Bournemouth in that it's not this kind of intense, aggressive rallying cry where you're trying to get through a one-off football match. It was 50,000 people revelling in the joy of the fact that they're watching the best football team in the land.
Absolutely, and that's the way it should be. I mean, you know, there's not been that many times in our recent past where we've been in this position, you know, if at all, you know what I mean? You think about 08, 09, you know, towards the end, we're chasing United down, 13, 14, yes, we're on an unbelievable run, but still, you weren't quite sure whether it was going to kind of end in glory, but we're in pole position here, so we should be absolutely going into every game thinking the Reds are going to turn it on, there's every chance we win the title, but you know, Dan's point there about going into the ground and he felt like it was going to be a good night. I was a little bit unsure, I think. I mean, you know, given what we've seen in recent weeks, it's not been, you know, quite to the level we were hoping or we're used to. But you can almost see that maybe, you know, Jürgen's gone to the lads, listen, there's been some criticism, some of it fair, some of it unfair, but go and show everyone why you're top of the league. Go and show everyone why you're the best team in the land at this moment in time. And that's what the boys did. And I thought, you know, prior to the game, I looked at the team sheet and I thought, I had one or two concerns, if I'm being really honest. I thought the midfield might have been a little bit too similar for what we needed in terms of maybe opening up Watford, but it didn't transpire that way at all. As I say, as Dad said there, you know, Jürgen got the team selection spot on.
Dan, it felt to me like the attack had its rhythm back, its coherence back, and that's despite the changes and the fact that it's not just one new player coming in, it's another player shifting position as well. And I think we would have all looked at the lineup when it's read out in the stadium or looked at the way they've set up kind of first 2 minutes and thought they really left that strange and Mane down the middle, but it was absolutely spot on. It was the perfect way of going about it. Do you think the unpredictability, if you like, of what we threw at Watford kind of helped?
Maybe so, yeah. I think there was a few people expecting that to be a first 10-minute thing and then for it to switch back. But I think there's a few things present now. I think the last few games you've seen clearly there's an adamance about going back to the 4-3-3. So I think last night you get to see what he wants from the 4-3-3 now going forward. He doesn't have Firmino since United, and I think what's been clear is since Firmino gets injured at United, I think his mindset has been, who is my best Firmino impressionist, if you like? Who can do me the best impression of Firmino? And arguably he gets that wrong at Old Trafford on Sunday, but I think also he gets it bang on last night with putting Mane through the middle, because I think what you see about Mane that kind of goes unnoticed is that he's possibly our best attacker with his back to goal. And I think where, like I say, what he wants from the 4-3-3, and you get to see it last night, is that Mane drops in and then there's tons of space in behind for the wide forwards and the full-backs. And then you get those players being sucked out from the opposition and you've got all the space that we've seen, especially down our right. So I think that was really clever, and also, you know, it worked really well. But I think also there's a thing where you look at the game last night, you look at where Watford walk onto the pitch, and it's one of those where you go, my God, these these are a giant gang of lads. So to put Origi in, from a defending set pieces point of view as well, I thought was really good and really crucial, because fundamentally you see that the position he takes up when we start defending set pieces and corners, he's very central in terms of his zone, and he's got a quite clear responsibility to be involved in getting involved defensively and aerially, and I don't think you'd have got that from a Keita or Shaqiri.
Ian, I think on Mane in particular, he shifted into the centre there like he's played it his entire career. He played it with such intelligence, such physicality as well as Dan mentioned, against a gang of groks in that back four, and also in central midfield, playing a bit deeper than what they would normally do. And it just felt to me like, I mean, he did it a few times for Southampton. He did it against us and scored a couple against us, once a few years ago at St Mary's. But I think being reminded of that versatility is really important, because we're so used to seeing him stuck out on the left, and he does a really, really good job there. We quite often see Salah being the one that shifts into the middle, or Firmino shifts wide, but I think being reminded of the versatility that Sadio Mane offers you, as well as the ingenuity, because I mean, that back heel might just be the fucking best thing that I've ever seen.
Can you marry back heel?
But I thought there were just loads of reminders from him after a bit of a poor week, I think, against both Bayern and United, of just how valuable he is in so many different ways.
Yeah, and I echo Dan's kind of comments there, but you have to say, for me last night, his movement is sensational. His movement is unreal. And for a guy who's probably, 5'8", 5'9", 5'10", tops, the sprint he's got as well, the leap, brilliant. I mean, he occupied, at times, the whole of their back forward. I thought it was a sensational performance. And, you'd say the managers looked at the United game, and I said at the time when we did the second look then, Dan, he's probably walked away from that and thought, that wasn't the greatest day I've ever had managing this football club. I probably got some of the real big decisions wrong, but as we've touched on there, he gets everything right. And I mentioned the midfield before, and that was maybe my one area of concern. And I'm probably talking about Milner in the main, because I think everyone was comfortable with Fabinho starting because he's been brilliant. Wijnaldum's one of the first names in the sheet, but Milner in the middle of the park, I thought, not sure at home, but he absolutely sets the tone. From the very first couple of minutes, he's flying in on Ben Foster, and you can just see, it just kind of, not necessarily galvanises the team, but he's doing that in different ways for that whole of the first half, and I thought Milner's first half performance was brilliant, to be honest.
To Origi then, Dan, he's pretty much a surprise name on the team sheet. He's definitely a surprise in terms of where he lines up. And I thought that more than anything, he gave a very mature and selfless performance there, because it's not a role that he's used to playing. But I think first half especially, he gives an awful lot of cover to Andy Robertson when Robertson's flying forward. Loads of really good covering, tackling towards his own corner flag. Really good interchanges with Sadio Mane, and he ends up scoring a goal that never looks on, really, until it's in the net.
He's quietly a decent finisher, Origi. I think if there's a criticism of him, he doesn't get himself into the positions enough. But he's not one where you'd label him as missing glaring chances time after time. I think he's quite decent in terms of his goal ratio. Something interesting the manager said last night pre-game, I think he got interviewed by Sky, and he said on picking him, he said Divok's trained well. And then he kind of went back on himself and he said, I can't really remember the time when he last trained badly. And I think it's been touched on in a couple of shows post-United that, the manager does at times like to operate a meritocracy. And I think if you have got Divock showing up every day with a really good attitude, trying to be the best he can be, saying to the manager, what can I do to get in? I think the opportunity last night is fair, and I think he gets repaid, the manager, with the job he tasks him to do, because it is a job. I think you're right, Dan. I think going back, he's very selfless, but he's also, as the game goes on, he's more switched on to his defensive responsibility. So I think the first half, a lot of our play was down the right side, and naturally, that left less for him and Robertson to do. But the more the game goes on, we've seen this season, the more Robertson gets into it, the more his energy levels seem to go up when others go down. So Origi then on the cover and everything else was fantastic. And I think it got touched on last night in one of the post-match shows. There's a moment where basically Trent and Robertson are playing as number 10s from one of our attacks that break down, but Origi, and I think it's Milner, just sit back in. And it's that's the type of fluidity the manager always looks for. So I think fair play to him that he gets in and he does a job. I think
on that, I think he's definitely worked on his defensive game. I remember watching him a couple of years ago at Bournemouth, and he scores that day. He scores a great goal that day. But one of the things that was kind of smack him in the face was that he doesn't track back, he's not doing his defensive duties. You couldn't level at him last night at all. He was really good at doing it. He's a frustrating player where sometimes he's taking shots where maybe he should be looking for the pass, but what he was really good at is standing the full back up and just doing it for pace. He's got great pace, and he was getting down that line, he was putting some decent balls in, and as I say, you know, in terms of that finish for the goal, wasn't really on, never really looked on. You could argue Foster could maybe do a little bit better for it, but it's a great strike.
Right, that's it from us for part one. We're going to cross to Neil Atkinson now. He's going to have a look with his tactics board at how Liverpool set up and how they were able to dismantle Watford.
Liverpool up against Watford, and it's the biggest the Anfield pitch has been in a while, or more accurately, the biggest Liverpool had made it. It was a real attempt, I think, from a Liverpool point of view to stretch Watford and to set them some real problems to try to work out over the course of the game. This obviously is not perfect. These lads, first and foremost, should probably be a bit higher. But this is the interesting part, first half especially, where when we saw the side come out and Mane was here, the question becomes, well, where's Salah? Normally Salah would be somewhere around here, constantly looking to get little bits around Firmino and all of that sort of stuff, look to play between full-back and centre-back. Not against Watford. He absolutely made the pitch huge, stood right out on the touchline at times in that first half. Origi at one point does a 60-yard switch from left to right to find Salah in space. Salah even beautifully, I thought, led onto it halfway through as it was on its way over towards him, making that trajectory. And what this does is this makes all of these players, Watford play quite narrow, go, who's dealing with this man? Not dissimilar to Felipe Anderson when we went to West Ham and they made the pitch huge going that way against us. Messina didn't know what to do, didn't know if he was coming or going. He got legged early on by Salah on a couple of occasions, and now he's got a centre-half partner wanting him to stay tight over here. Trent Alexander-Arnold looking to do bits through here, and he's got the idea that Wijnaldum or Milner can come and make it busy here before getting back in if need be to full-back, Fabinho covering over if required. What making the pitch that big does is it creates half spaces for Liverpool to play in. The manager spoke about that after the game, but it also then means that Salah's able to drive at this full-back in a way which is quite different. He can go either side than what we've seen recently when it's been about being over here, I know they're the same red counter, and being close and looking to do little clever bits. Liverpool created the idea of being able to play in the half spaces by creating the half spaces themselves, making them bigger and bigger and bigger. Origi is not Mane on this flank, so Origi finds himself being quite direct. Mane would always come in a little bit more and act as a semi-sort of number 10 creative figure. It worked. It worked for Liverpool. We'll see if they keep it moving going forward.
Thanks very much to Neil for the tactics section, as insightful as ever. And I want to do a little chat about Watford now, because I was having a little look at the league table this morning, and Watford have conceded 40 goals so far this season. 8 of them have been to Liverpool across 2 games. A fifth of the league goals they've conceded have been to Liverpool. That demonstrates to me that, number one, they're a really good football team that doesn't concede too many. And secondly, Liverpool are doing especially well when they're playing against them. Liverpool also have scored a half-full against Bournemouth twice this season, and Bournemouth are on the other side. They were sort of best of the rest. Watford are officially the best of the rest at this moment in time. They're below, I think it's Chelsea, is it, in the table? And then Bournemouth are kind of in that same little mini-division. Do you think that, Ian, playing against teams that are good at football, playing against teams that have a bit of a go? Because I thought Watford were all right last night, to be honest. Do you think that playing against that style of team and that level of quality of team actually suits Liverpool in the end?
I think so, and I think you mentioned Bournemouth there. I always think they're a really good side of Liverpool to play against because they give you space, they give you opportunities. You know, they try and play their own game. They don't come and try and stifle. And I think Watford, you know, you mentioned the size of Watford, and that's probably an indication of why the manager goes with the team he goes with, because he goes with Origi, because obviously big, powerful. You know, Milner again, he's physical. The midfield's physical, and maybe he just didn't, you know, fancy a Shaqiri in that type of football match. And he's obviously got him to use from the bench. So, you know, Watford are a decent side. You know, you look at the scoreline, you'll think 5-0, Liverpool have absolutely battered them, and they did to a degree. But, you know, let's be fair, you know, Watford did create 1 or 2 chances, and you never ever really thought that they were, you know, a really awful, poor football team. It was just that Liverpool was so good, and I think all the credit goes to the Reds last night for just turning in a real dominating performance.
Dan, Javi Gracia has done an excellent job there to turn them around from kind of perennial relegation candidates to the team that alongside Wolves are really challenging the kind of established top 6. They've got a midfield 4 there that's full of talented and really physical footballers. So they've got Capu and they've got Doucouré in the middle. They've got Pereira out wide, who's got a really good goal-scoring record this season. Will Hughes is a very neat and tidy player as well on the right. And I thought Liverpool completely and utterly dominated them in the middle.
I think Liverpool put them into chaos very early on, especially at left back. And I don't think Pereira helps his left back at any point. But I think Liverpool very quickly take the game and its terms away from Watford. And Watford, I think there's a little bit of Watford being on the back of the biggest win of the season as well, where they might have just been giving themselves a little bit of a tap on the back for a few days, and they've come for Anfield as a bit of a freebie. But nothing they do last night is done by them, basically. Everything's taken away from them. And I think Liverpool have quietly been a little bit flat-track bully this season. And I think that people can caveat that and say, well, we didn't win against West Ham or Leicester last month. But, you know, you're going to have that during the course of a league season. And not only did Liverpool not lose those games, you know, they managed to get a couple of points that you don't know what they're going to look like come the end of the season. So I think you're right. I think there's definitely something in the fact that Watford and Bournemouth come with at least a plan to try and come and win the game. But the way in which Liverpool take that away from them, I think, is a testament to us, and it's something that we're going to need going forward, because Chelsea and Tottenham apart now, being flat-track bullies won't do us any harm at all for the rest of the season.
I think that's really interesting. What you see last night, you know, you look at a player like Troy Deeney, who always plays the game on his terms, always, you know, looks to dominate the centre half, looks to rough them up a little bit, and you've seen him come up in the past and talk about, you know, how easy he's found it against certain teams. There was times last night where I'm thinking, he's going to start applauding Van Dijk in a minute. Van Dijk was that fucking good. You know, he tried and beat him on the deck, no chance. Beat him in the air, he'll have you off. And it looked like Deeney was just kind of looking at him in like admiration about, you know, Van Dijk spraying balls, 60, 50, 60 yards. It was an unbelievable dominant display. And again, you know, talk about Milner setting the tone from a midfield perspective. Van Dijk absolutely sets the tone in that back four. And I thought it was another superb performance from Liverpool's number 4.
We need to talk about him in a bit of detail, don't we? Because he's by far and away the best defender I've seen play for Liverpool. It's only been just over a year, but I don't think there's any argument about it anymore. He can literally do anything. And I thought what was interesting about the goals that he scored last night was how, for both of those headers, he was completely in charge of that Watford penalty area. Yeah. He was dictating what happened in it. He was pointing where he wanted the ball. He was the one making the run. He was the one with the pace and the strength and the ability, the technical ability to make that jump and put it in the net. And they were just trying to react to him. They weren't setting up their own line. They were just trying to react to what Virgil van Dijk was doing. And he dominates our penalty area as well. He dominates our part of the pitch against pretty much any attack that he plays against. And if he can get to the point where he's doing this on a more regular basis, not scoring braces all the time, but where he's making the opposition worried every single time he's in that area, where they've got in the back of their minds, they've got a brilliant fella here who can just put one in, and maybe we're going to have to put 3 defenders on him just to stop him. If he can dominate the opposition penalty area as well as he can dominate our half of the pitch, he might just be one of the best footy players ever.
I mean, you look where he takes up some of his positions when we've got the ball, and he's in midfield, and then he's squeezing, and you think, these can't get out. So where he takes up those positions, where he's probably about 40 yards from their goal, and he's just dictating play, and he's so comfortable, he'll take it in any situation, any tight space, one-touch stuff. But I have to say, I mean, I was a big fan of Jimmy Carragher when he was here, and I thought, you know, he'd rather die than concede a goal. You know, he was an out-and-out defender, but Van Dijk's that. But then he's got this ability where you could stick him in the centre of the park in midfield and he wouldn't look out of place. His one-touch stuff is great. His vision, his execution of a 50, 60-yard pass, as I said before, is unbelievable. I don't think I've ever seen a centre-half like him, honest to God. And as I say, you're already saying now, he might well be the best centre-half that's played for the club, certainly in our lifetime. I mean, I caught the very end of Anson's career, but fucking hell, I mean, Anson must have been some player if people are saying, no, he was better than Virgil, because Virgil just looks on another level.
It's not just a centre-half thing for me. There's very few players I've seen in my time supporting Liverpool who carry such a presence on the football field, and I haven't seen a player with his presence since Gerrard. So what I think's dead funny about last night is he gets his 2 goals, and then he gives a little rousing arm wave to the cop and to the ground, and everyone just jumps on it. And it's kind of like hairs on the back of your neck kind of stuff, and you feel this just overwhelming sense of reassurance from him, and he's a perennial winner. He's got such a born sense of leadership in him. He very much is. You know, we talk all the time about managers on the pitch and stuff like that, and how we've kind of give that label to players without really thinking about it over the past few years, but he really is. He is that one that you look to go, everything's going to be all right here. Whenever you look at him, he is just a sense and a presence of calm, of expectancy, and of the levels that are set by this team now.
And that's really interesting because, you know, he does all the right things, but he says the right things as well. And when he comes out and says something, you sit up and take notice. You think, fucking hell, Virgil's saying something here. It's worth listening to. He's not one of these guys who just comes out and says things all the time like some people do. When he says something, there's a real meaning behind it. And he's come out recently and said a number of things, and you've thought, you know what? He's absolutely fucking spot on.
I'm utterly convinced he could play up front in the Premier League, you know.
Yeah.
I think Huddersfield, Southampton, Burnley would be far better off if they could have Virgil van Dijk playing number 9 for them than any of the picks that they've got.
His finish at Wolves, that finish at Wolves was fucking unbelievable for a centre-half. How many centre-halves are tucking that away in the corner like he does on that night before Christmas? He's a hell of a player.
Don't fancy swapping in for Lorenzo Potter, Dan. Lorenzo Potter, a massive centre-half.
Ian, we're looking at the derby this weekend now, and we were worried going into this game about that little goalless week that we had. First of all, this now becomes a bit of a positive in that Liverpool have kept 3 clean sheets in a row against 3 very, very good football teams. But I think what I enjoyed most about last night is that Liverpool get goals from unexpected sources. So obviously Van Dijk gets us 2. Origi is a forward, but we don't expect him to be scoring many goals. And at a point in the season where the kind of regular front 3 seemed to be having a bit of a struggle last week, it's really nice, isn't it, to be getting goals from areas of the pitch and from people that ostensibly you're not expecting it from.
Absolutely, and I think if you're looking at criticism of this football team, at times it's been that it's only the front 3 that are going to maybe chip in with goals. But you know, last night obviously Van Dijk gets his 2, and you know it was great to see the performance of the full-backs. You know, especially Trent. I just thought, you know, for 20 years of age, to deliver a performance like that was just unbelievable. It was a world-class performance at right-back, and, you know, the lad, I mean, who knows what his level is? I mean, whether he ends up in midfield or not, I don't know. But right now, I mean, to be doing what he's doing, it's sensational. I think there's been times where he's taken a lot of criticism for his defensive kind of displays, if you like, and there's been times where maybe he has been caught out, but you've just got to keep remembering him. He's 20 years of age. How many 20-year-olds are doing what he's doing in world football? And the balls he puts in last night, you just can't defend them. You just cannot defend them. The one for Mane, the header, unbelievable. Unbelievable. And then the Van Dijk one the same. And you're thinking to yourself in the ground, you're thinking, fucking hell, we could have done with a little bit of that at Old Trafford. And I don't know, it doesn't always work out that way, but we kind of missed that delivery on Sunday. And I thought Andy Robbo, I mean, he comes away from that game with 2 assists. I didn't think it was his greatest game in terms of distribution. I thought he gave it away a couple of times. But, you know, again, you know, you can't argue, you know, the ball for kind of Virgil's last goal was great. So I think we're in a really good position where, because we've got Fabinho in the middle of the park and we've got Ronaldo next to him, you've almost got that box where the centre-halves are happy, they've got those 2 in front, and it just allows the full-backs to go so far forward to the point where they're like fucking wingers. And if you're in an opposition, I mean, how do you defend that? We've got the front 3, and then you've got these other lads just bombing on, causing absolute chaos. So, yeah, loads and loads of positives, but I have to say, you know, you've got to talk about Trent's performance there because, as I say, for a lad of that age to be doing what he did last night was brilliant.
Little word on the midfield, Dan, before we go. Ian's mentioned Fabinho there, and the ease with which he looks like he's getting through football games at the minute is just outstanding. Every time he runs 20 yards to catch up with a midfielder on the run and puts his big long leg in the way and wins the ball back, it just looks like it's the easiest thing in the world to him. Thought he was brilliant again, and James Milner gave an awful lot of urgency and intensity in the midfield after what was probably a below-par performance on the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of things for me. I think firstly, I think Fabinho might example what we've done tactically this season. So if you look at, I think the interview Neil Jones does with Pep Linders recently, and he talks about Fabinho and how he sees him as a lighthouse and how they see him as this beacon of midfield. But he also says, which I found quite interesting, basically he just admits we changed to a 4-2-3-1 early in the season to put someone next to him to get him through games of football and help him. And it's notable now, like I said earlier, we've gone back to the 4-3-3, but we've done that with complete assurance and trust in Fabinho that you can do your job now without having that hand-holding process next to you of a player of Wijnaldum or Henderson maybe. So I think that what we've done now in terms of that is we've looked to liberate both the full-backs and also Firmino, and I think that's been the manager's plan to get us home throughout this season. But the midfield, therefore, then obviously takes on a new shape and a new look. But I think if you ask the manager and he's being honest, I think he wants his first sub in either game on around 60-65 to be either Milner or Henderson. I think that's who he wants his first sub to be, because I think he sees that as how he can control games going forward. And I think that'll be the plan now from now until the end of the season. And that might not be great news for someone like Shaqiri or Naby Keita even, but at the same time, the manager works with these every day. He's got the data, he's got the attitude, he's got the analysis of them, he's got the way they train and the way they perform, and he sees what's going to be best for us from now till May. And I think Fabinho he's a shining light, and Milner again. You know, I like Milner at full back. I do. I've got a thing where I do think he works, but when you've got Trent playing the way he did last night and showing that he is, you know, he's fully fit, but also he's fully he's vilified in that, you know, he's left out at Old Trafford and he wants to be on the pitch and he gets himself on there. I think that he's at a position where you can't leave him out now, but it's fine. You know, we've options in there, and I think that the 4-3-3 will take us forward now.
That's about all that we've got time for on the second look this week. Thanks very much to Dan and to Ian as ever, and thanks to you for watching. There's going to be loads more on the Anfield App's YouTube channel over the next couple of days. First and foremost, there's a Talking Reds from this morning that's already out. You'll also be getting a preview of the Everton game coming up tomorrow. Absolutely gigantic one coming up at Goodison Park on Sunday. Hope you really, really enjoy your next few days. Looking forward to it. Hope you really, really enjoy your Sunday as well as Liverpool goal there and batter the blue shite. All the best. See you later.